Well, hello everyone. This is DC with the DC Capstone Report. It's great to be back live with you again this week. I want to thank you for watching and tuning in. It is so great that we get to see all the numbers going up, people tuning into the podcast. This is our odd podcast on Alabama football. So if you love Alabama football, this is a podcast for you. Just want to thank Lance Shores for continually working with me. He's in the studio putting this together as far as the production. And it's always a pleasure for Lance and I to bring the DC Capstone Report your way. Well, today on the DC Capstone Report, it is football kickoff week. Alabama kicks off this week on Saturday the 26th at 6 p.m. against the Missouri Tigers. So we look forward to talking about game week. It's been a long time coming. With the virus and everything that's been going on, we wondered if we were going to get to this day. But it's great that we get to talk about game week. So today in the DC Capstone Report on the podcast, we're going to look in our first segment, a preview of the upcoming Missouri game. In our second segment, we're going to take a look to what to look for on offense for the Alabama Crimson Tide. In our third segment, we're going to take a look at what to look for on defense.
You're listening to the DC Capstone Report. The DC Capstone Report is featured each Tuesday morning on the Martin Houston Show at Tide 100.9. You can listen live at Tide100.9.com.
Well, welcome to the DC Capstone Report. This is our first segment. We're going to preview the upcoming game against the Missouri Tigers. Well, it's our first game of the year. We get to go on the road. Alabama goes on the road to travel to Missouri to play the Missouri Tigers. What do we know about them? Well, we know they had a fairly good start to last year, opened up, I believe, 5-1, went to a bowl game, but they have a new coach this year. So Eli Drinkwitz comes over from Appalachian State. He was head coach there and did a great job in the Sun Belt. So what do we look for in the Missouri Tigers? Well, on offense, it's kind of up in the air. The coach is not named a starting quarterback. Now, we don't know which one's going to start. Both of the quarterbacks are very capable, athletic quarterbacks, the type of quarterbacks that Drinkwitz likes to run in his system. We do know they returned some starters on a few starters on defense and have had on offense and had a transfer in to play wide receiver for them that gives them some starting experience as well. But basically, you just have to look back as what did Drinkwitz do at Appalachian State? Well, my keys to this game from Missouri, it looks like for us to watch them, they're going to have a downhill running game. They're going to try to pound the ball downhill running against Alabama. And they're going to try to set up with their athletic quarterback making some runs to try to get out in open space, spread the field, and try to gash us with some runs. So I look for a downhill running game to be just like they did against Appalachian State when he was coaching there. Now, in the Appalachian State last year, they went 11-1, won the Sun Belt, went to a bowl game. So I really believe it's a opportunity for Drinkwitz to take his type of game into the SEC with the Missouri Tigers. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's the first year, so we really don't know what they're going to do. Just kind of going on what they did at Appalachian State. What kind of players you'll have to work with remains to be seen. So we'll just kind of see how they line up, but expect a fast-paced, downhill running game in order to look for them on offense. On defense now, they returned 8 starters from last year's team on defense. I believe they were like 14th in the nation in defense at one time. So we look for them to come out and try to play a really tough defensive on Alabama against Alabama in this first game. Tough up front defensive line, their front 7. It's where their returning starters are. So this game against Missouri, the first game out of the chute for both teams. So what can we expect? I think we can expect some first game jitters on both sides of the ball. Something to watch for in this is how both teams will be able to manage on offense and defense. And when jitters, I mean by making plays or giving up big plays, turnovers, that type of thing. So we'll just kind of see exactly how both teams take this delayed start and being the first game. Alabama goes on the road, so we'll see how they act in the first road game for the year starting against an SEC opponent. Also in this game, we want to look at how Alabama comes out and attacks the Dame defensively. We'll look specifically at this in the third segment today, but overall, how is our young secondary going to hold up against the passing attack that Drinkwitz likes to operate into this fast-paced running game and then working in the passes? So we want to look at that. Third, what about injuries? Where does Alabama line up in this first game against Missouri injury-wise? Well, last year this time we know we had a lot of injuries going into the first game. We had a lot of starters out. But this year we've remained relatively injury-free. About a week ago I learned of an injury that happened in practice, but I didn't release it just because I wanted it to be released by the team. But finally today we learned that Ronald Williams had a fractured arm. He's a cornerback, probably a reserve cornerback, but a junior college transfer with some experience. And he's gone down in the secondary and he won't be available. He right now is the only player that we know won't be available for this game as far as injury. Right now, Alabama has not made any players non-available due to COVID testing. Now we know it's a testing every day, and so we still got the rest of this week to get through. And even on Friday, that before they leave for the game, there'll be a rapid test given to make sure that the players that make the trip are virus-free. We do know from the Missouri side of the ball that as of last week, they'd identified 12 players that either through testing positive or contact tracing was going to be held out of this game for the virus. So it looks like Alabama has done a much better job in managing the virus, keeping players safe from that than Missouri has, at least in this game, with Missouri already reporting 12 players down because of the virus, and Alabama none. So overall, the preview of this game looks to be a great opening match, to have an opening game. And everybody says, well, opening up against Missouri, they don't get excited about that. I'm excited about it. I want to see how this team plays, how the Alabama team come out and play. We don't know much about Missouri. What are they going to do to try to attack this solid Alabama team? And I remember a while back, years ago, Alabama opened up in Legion Field, one of Bear Bryant's coaching teams, against an up-and-coming Missouri team, and Missouri beat us in the opening game at Legion Field. Richard Todd, I believe, was quarterback that game, and it was all the headlines was on Alabama, and all the press was there to see Alabama. And Missouri came in and really played a good game and beat us. So we can be beat by any team at any time. So we need to go in with our heads right, with focusing on what we can do to be the best team we can be, and play the best game we can play. The only other part that I think that we need to watch in this game is special teams. I think that this is a game where we can break a special teams run, or there might be a breakdown in a special team. So that's important to watch in this game. When you hadn't had much off time, much fall camp, didn't have any spring, one of the things that's easy to get left out or forgotten about is how to work the special teams. So watch our kickoffs, watch our punts, watch our punt returns and our kickoff returns, and see if Alabama can break one for a score, and also maintain a good level when we're kicking the ball or when we're punting the ball as well. But overall, I'm excited that we get to play a game against Missouri, the Missouri Tigers, on the road Saturday night, 6 o'clock on ESPN. I hope all of you tune in and to watch Alabama roll in this game. Well, here we are in the second segment. Today in the second segment on the podcast, we're going to discuss what to watch on offense. What do we want to watch for when Alabama has the ball? Well, I think the number one thing we want to watch for when Alabama has the ball is our playmakers. Our playmakers that we have already been identified are going to be starting in this game. That is our quarterback, Mac Jones. The depth chart's been released. He's going to be starting as quarterback. I don't think it comes as a surprise to anyone that's been watching fall camp. Najee Harris gets the nod as a starting running back. That doesn't come to any surprise. And you got Devonta Smith and Jaylen Waddle at the wideouts. This Alabama team has a core of playmakers. And I believe we need to watch at the very beginning here and see how Alabama settles into the running game. And I think that will bode well to see how we're going to set up the pass for some wonderful play action passing down the road. But I think early on in this game, watch Alabama lean heavily on running backs Najee Harris. Right behind Najee Harris in the backfield on the depth chart is a fellow senior, Brian Robinson. He's wearing number 4 this year, so watch for him when he gets to come in and run the ball as well. I just really think this running game is going to be something to look forward to. And I think it all starts, though, with Mac Jones and his quarterbacking abilities. He's won the starting job. I don't think it was as close as some people expected it to be. I think Bryce Young has come in. He brings a lot of athleticism, a lot of ability, a lot of great upside. But the youth, with not having a spring, not having a full fall camp to really mature and get into the playbook, may have set him back just a little bit. I think still he's a good second string. I think he's going to get some game time. I think in this game, Paul Tyson maybe get to play late. But I think the offense rises and falls on Mac Jones. So what does Mac have to do? Well, what I've said all along, if you go back and listen to any of my podcasts, I said from the very beginning, all Mac Jones has to do is play like Mac Jones. He doesn't have to be someone else. In other words, play within himself based on what he can do. He's got good arm strength. He's got good head knowledge. He knows the plays. Get us in the right plays, make the right calls, make the right reads, and make the good throws. Don't try to do something. Don't try to make something happen. In other words, play within himself. I think when Mac Jones has trouble, it's when he gets in his head a little bit and tries to make something happen. But with the playmakers he's got around him, just get the ball to the playmakers. Get the ball out. Get it to your running backs. Throw the ball to your playmakers like Devonta Smith, Jaylen, Waddle, and give them an opportunity to do something with the ball. If he does that and limits mistakes, limits his turnovers, I think this is going to be a very good game for the Alabama offense, because I think all the decisions if he makes all the right decisions, stays within himself and plays with himself, it's going to be a very good game for the Alabama offense. Well, what really is going to excite me about this game is watching the trenches. This Alabama offensive line, to me, could be the best offensive line. I know it's preseason. We haven't seen them play yet. From what I'm hearing from people who have watched scrimmages and watched the plays in the scripted plays that have been going on in the practices, this offensive line is really good. And I'm not talking about just the starters, but those that are backing them up as well. Well, we predicted last week that starting would be Emil Ikior in the guard position and Landon Dickerson would start at center. And that is exactly when the depth chart came out this week. You got Alex Leatherwood starting at left tackle, got Deontay Brown starting at left guard, Dickerson is starting at center, Emil Ikior is starting at right guard, and Evan Neal slides out to right tackle. So that's your starting offensive line. And the ones behind them playing multiple positions across the line of scrimmage. You've got people like Tommy Brown at guard, and Chris Owens at center and left tackle. Got Darren Delacourt at center, Pierce Quick, Amari Knight, Kendall Randolph, Javon Cohen. All those different players that are going to get a chance to come in and play at different times when needed. So this offensive line is solid. And what I think that gives is it helps the running game and it helps the passing game. Having a good, solid offensive line establishes that run. And I think it's been a while since we could impose our will on the other team. And I think that exactly what this offensive line gives us an opportunity to do. Missouri is going to come out with 8 seasoned veterans that started all last year's games on defense, and we had a team that was 14th in defensive statistics last year. So we have a good opportunity to watch early in this game and see our offensive line. Can they impose their will? In other words, can we run the ball on Missouri when we want to? When they know we're going to run it, can we still gain positive yards? And can we protect Mac Jones to give him an opportunity to make some plays and get the ball out to playmakers in the passing game? I think we will. I think it's going to be a great opportunity to see Mac Jones get protected well. If he can limit his turnovers and let this offensive line protect him, we're going to have a great day offensively. Now, I mentioned special teams in the opening segment there about the first part about the preview of the game. Well, the special teams can be important. We've got Jaylen Waddle, running back kicks, running back punt returns. Don't be surprised to watch him. If Missouri has a breakdown in any type of coverage, exploit that for a touchdown. So I'm predicting that we have one special teams touchdown by Jaylen Waddle during this game. A couple of players to watch. When we're on offense, I want you to watch a couple of freshmen who made it on the depth chart, and that's wide receiver Javon Baker and then running back Jase McCllean. I think both of those, if McCllean gets in the game either on special teams or on running back, I think you're going to see a young freshman player who has a high upside. But I think definitely Javon Baker gets in the game. He's penciled in on the depth chart at backup wide receiver right behind Devonta Smith. He's a freshman. We talked about him a lot on our podcast. But look for him to get in the game and make some big plays in this game. So your new players to watch on offense are Javon Baker and Jase McCllean. Well, we're here on the third and final segment on today's Alabama football podcast on the DC Capstone Report. We're glad you're continuing to listen to us. Now, what we're going to watch for on defense and special teams. What do we watch for when Missouri has the ball or when we're on special teams? Well, I think number one is we need to watch in this, have we improved our communication? I think one of the most glaring things last year on defense was not getting lined up in the right formations on time, not passing off the player to the right player, not getting in the right coverages. In other words, the defensive backs and the linebackers in different coverages, or half of the defensive backs in one coverage and half in another. We want to make sure that we don't see any Missouri players running wide open. We want to make sure that's always a bust if they're running wide open. We want to make sure that there's everybody's being covered, and we want to make sure that this young secondary can put players on the field that can communicate and call the plays in the backfield in the secondary that way. Patrick Surtain going to be a starting at cornerback. That is really going to be our player that's got the most experience in the secondary. So he's got a big job ahead of him. But look for him to really bring this young secondary together and let them gel in order to see them make a difference. So I think communication will be a difference in this. I think the young secondary might be tested a little bit, especially with some running plays by an athletic quarterback and some pass plays as well. So watch for the young secondary and see how they hold up against this Missouri offense that Drinkwitz brings over from Appalachian State. But overall, you got some veteran players like Patrick Surtain that I talk about, but LaBryan Ray on the defensive line and Dylan Moses on the defensive line. on linebackers. I think both Dylan Moses and LaBryan Ray bring a lot of seniority, a lot of experience to this defensive team. And I think between LaBryan Ray, Dylan Moses, and Patrick Surtain, they're going to get the communication out to the other players of what the plays, and I think that's going to be improved this year. Well, I think another part of the defense we need to watch is our defensive line. Can we stop the running game, that downhill running game that Drinkwitz brings over from App State? Can we do that? I think we can. I think one of the most improved part of this Alabama team is going to be our defensive line. Now, if you look at the depth chart on defense, you got LaBryan Ray starting at defensive end. You got DJ Dale at the nose guard, and Justin Eboigbe is listed as the other starting on defensive end. Now, that might be a surprise to some of you. I've always talked about Christian Barmore and how I thought he would start. But just a little information. Christian Barmore has been slowed a little bit in practice with some injuries. He's missed some time, but I've been told that he is getting better each day and on the road to recovery. I think that penciled him in at second there is for the fact that he's missed so much time in practice this week. But I look for him to play as long as he's healthy. So, but when we look at that defensive line, you can go three deep on each one of these players. You got at the defensive end LaBryan Ray, Byron Young, and Stephon Wynn. That's three deep in the defensive end position that are really good. You got nose guard DJ Dale, who has a lot of good experience as a freshman. And then you got a true freshman, Tim Smith, and redshirt freshman Ishmael Sofsher. I look for all three of those to get to play, and they all should do a really good job. And then at the other defensive end, Justin Eboigbe, Christian Barmore, and Pendarian Mathis. All of them got some experience last year playing. So this defensive line, three deep, may be the best defensive line that we put on the field in the first game in quite some time as far as experience and playing time. So look for them to play well in this game. I think Dylan Moses is going to do good in the in the linebacker position. I think he'll be calling the plays. Having Christian Harris playing alongside him will make both of them better. I think being more athletic. So I think our middle linebacker position is really looks good. One of the things I want you to watch for on defense is two young guys that are penciled in as playing outside linebacker, and that's Will Anderson and Drew Sanders. So look for both of them. They're penciled in as the starters for the jack linebacker position. Will Anderson Jr., a true freshman, number 31, and Drew Sanders, a true freshman, number 16. So watch for both of these players to contribute. The other true freshman to watch for in this game are two secondary players, and that's Malachi Moore and Brian Branch. They're penciled in at the star position, so look for both of those freshmen. They're in the R category, so look for both of those freshmen to get out there on the field at some time playing. So really, we look really good, I think, this year defensively. I think we're really improved, and I think this game against Missouri gives us an opportunity to show how much improved that we are. Well, lastly, I want to talk about a little bit about our special teams. Looks like Will Reichert is back from his injury and doing well. He'll be handling the place kicking duties. Joseph Bulovas is his backup, so we do have a fresh, experienced redshirt junior doing that. Looks like Mac Jones and Slade Boland will be doing the holding duties. But here, an interesting in our punting position, you got Sam Johnson or Charlie Scott penciled in as the R for the starting punter. I told you several weeks ago that don't be shocked to see Sam Johnson, a true freshman from Birmingham, Alabama, played at Mountain Brook, get the starting nod at punter. He's done really good. You got Charlie Scott, who's J.K. Scott's brother, who transferred in. He has an opportunity to kick as well. But I've heard some great things about Sam Johnson and punter. So hope our special teams are better this year. Look forward to getting confidence in our kickers to play well. So I really hope that we look in this game against Missouri and have an opportunity to see improvement in our kicking game. Well, that's all time we had today for the DC Capstone Report. It is a pleasure to be able to come to you on this podcast for a game week. So look forward to being back next week to review the game against Missouri, and look forward to our upcoming game against Texas A&M. Until then, roll tide and have a great week.